Yeah.
It's like that perfect temperature outside where it's like too cold to go swimming normally, but a hot tub's just perfect, you know?
Yeah, I'm outside right now, hanging out, doing this instead.
Awesome. So, on my way home from work, I passed a sheriff's bus driving people to the Cook County Jail.
Okay.
And they started flipping me off. And I didn't even
The penitentiary folk did?
Yeah. And I didn't even do anything to prompt it. But, as I was telling my wife, I didn't retaliate. You know what? I just let them have that one. Because they were, obviously, you know, they're flipping me off through a window that's probably only 3 inches tall by 6 inches long.
Right.
Right? So I was
you got to give them little wins.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about little wins.
Right. I just let them have their moment. So I was very magnanimous today.
Well, nice. Well, yeah. Might as well give them the one little win before their butthole pierces. So,
Indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Plumbus Among Us, the Rick and Morty podcast. My name is Brian, and with me, as always, is my friend Jeff. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just dandy fine on this nice autumn, not yet autumn day.
Yeah, close enough to autumn. Jeff and I and our friend Dave also host a Nothing Important podcast where we talk to people more famous than we will ever be, and we actually managed to record a Wheeler Walker Jr. interview without losing the audio. It was a lot of fun, and we will have that episode up soon. And for
it only took a couple tries.
Yeah, it only took a couple tries. For shits and giggles, I'm going to put it in this feed as well because promotion. Also, if you like Better Call Saul, you can catch us on It's All Good, Man, the Better Call Saul podcast. That's on iTunes. And just like this podcast, it's on the TV Time app. The TV Time app, download it on your smartphone. Find your favorite TV shows, talk, converse, make memes, interact, do all that good stuff. TV Time app, download them shits.
To the max.
To the max.
The max.
All right, so full disclosure, it is now September 5th, so we're just slightly behind everybody else recording about this episode.
Which I think is fine because we took our own rest in Ricklaxation.
Yes, yes we did.
To take the week and the weekend, knowing that there wasn't an episode coming up. I was on vacation a little bit when the episode came out, so, you know, I wasn't able to jump to it like we normally do. And after that, you know, life, man. Yeah. Things. You got to do stuff.
So here you are. You know, so it might work out in our favor because everybody's already listened. You know, everybody's already done it. You know, because the show premiered on August 27th, so everybody's already all Rick and Morty'd, and then they took a break, and now they're ready to Rick and Morty once more.
Well, hopefully Hopefully this can serve as a reminder for them then.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So here we go. Episode 6, episode 306. Rest and Ricklaxation.
Yes, sir.
Rest and Ricklaxation. I like how I just had to repeat it because it was hard for me to speak, hard for me to say it. This episode kind of opened up with a scene that they showed in the animatic, like Rick and Morty. Well, I guess it opened up with them at school, and Rick's taking Morty on a 20-minute adventure. So I guess we could start there. He's the goal of the adventure is to get a crystal from a princess, so Rick can be awesome.
Right. So standard Rick trying to do stuff to boost his own ego, just because he found out about something. I did too, because that beginning. And it was kind of a theme through the whole episode. This, to me, I really liked this episode because it was just classic Rick and Morty. Mm-hmm. You know, season 1, early season 2 stuff, where it was just, you know, they're going to get into some shit, and some other shit happens, and, you know, the story moves forward. But it just had a much different vibe than the last 5 episodes have.
Right. I feel like... because they were met with such success for the first 2 seasons, that here in the third season, that with the first 5 episodes, they kind of got pushed more towards the story arc. And the story arc has always been there, but it seemed like that became more prominent in the first 5 episodes.
Yeah.
And then this episode comes along, and it's just like, hey, an adventure.
Yeah, that's how a lot of shows do it too. I mean, you can have your story arcs and you can have your pieces, but every once in a while, you just got to have fun. and this episode to me was a lot of fun. I've probably watched it 4 or 5 times.
I do like Jessica and her friends as they're talking about how Jessica broke up with Brad. They describe true love as docking, which is very true. Very true.
Just slip that extra skin over another head. That's all.
Which I tried to figure out what that would accomplish, other than the fact that maybe 2 men who were attracted to each other first started doing that just to see if they could do it.
I remember you and I living together. Not that we docked by any means. We totally could have. Well, right, I think we're both circumcised. But anyway,
it wasn't for lack of trying.
Yeah, exactly. It was just more like rams hitting their heads together. But
especially when we would start at opposite ends of the room.
How else are you supposed to do it? Maybe I'm doing docking wrong. I mean, I remember hearing about it though a long time ago. But I'm glad to see that the Urban Dictionary is still holding true to this day.
Yeah, it is the gospel. Then it cuts from the school, Rick and Morty, everything. We jump in the middle, everything going frickin' haywire, and pretty much Rick and Morty. Apparently they get the crystal. They get celebrated in a very Star Wars fashion.
It was very Star Wars. I even wrote that down. Star Wars celebration.
Yeah, see, and once again, I've never seen a Star Wars episode, but it's such an ingrained piece of pop culture. I knew that was a Star Wars reference, and I had never once seen a Star Wars film. It's crazy.
Well, good for you.
Then it cuts back to the ship. They're ready to go home, and pretty much Rick and Morty just have a breakdown.
Yeah, I mean, given the last 20 seconds we see of 6 days worth of adventure, I'd have a breakdown too, because they seriously almost died. And it goes back to and Rick even mentions this. It goes back to the whole theme that's been going on kind of throughout this season is control, where he says, I had no idea. It was just all random. It was just all, I had no control over the situation where he normally does. And it, again, just like I said, it goes back to the whole theme. At least they're touching on the first 5 episodes of control.
Indeed. They decide that they're going to go on a vacation, so they go to some weird alien spa and get the toxins separated from their body. I did like Rick berating the guy with the phlegm in his throat.
Yeah, it was kind of gross, because I was eating when I watched it the second time.
Yeah.
And it did kind of make me go, ugh.
It's like making me, like, right now as I'm... gross. It's like making me... It's weird, because it's not even, like, a grossly visual thing, I guess. It's just, like, the sound of that, It kind of makes everybody, like, choke up. It's
like when you hear someone chewing.
Yeah.
Even whether they're doing it in front of you, which is, like, super gross, or even you hear it, on a podcast or on the radio or something, you can hear that.
Right.
Just that smacking and everything. It's unsettling and disgusting.
And it's weird because if you watch somebody chew or you see somebody clear their throat, you don't really think twice about it. But it's one of the rare, like, if you hear it, it gives you physical disgust. So
absolutely, yeah.
So I kind of enjoy that, I guess, just because phlegm jokes not utilized enough in today's modern culture.
There needs to be a phlegm resurgence in comedy. Really,
it's about damn time. Somebody had to say it, and I'm proud that we here at A Plumbus Among Us, where we took charge. We stood up.
We're breaking, breaking trends right here.
Indeed. So Rick and Morty are separated from the toxic Rick and Morty. Toxic Rick is Super Dick,
Dick, but
maybe.
Oh, go ahead, finish.
No, like obviously, I like to think that I guess they've been building up to it because Rick has always been kind of a dick, but he's seen more so of a dick this season. So it'll be interesting if he's less of a dick in the last 4 episodes.
Yeah, he's had a couple life-changing experiences between the infinite lifetimes with Jerry, having to live next to him, and then now this ultra cleanse that he had. But I like how they set up Toxic Rick's infatuation with Toxic Morty right from the get-go, because the first thing he says is, "Morty, and is looking for him out of the entire thing instead of looking out for himself or trying to figure out anything for himself.
Right, absolutely. And Toxic Morty is so pathetic and self-loathing. Just an absolute terrible, terribly depressing version of Morty. Like, even more so than Morty already is. He's just sad, even falling apart.
Yeah, what do they call it? Flandersization of characters as a story goes on, like in The Simpsons with Flanders. Before he was just kind of the benign, weird neighbor, and then throughout a series, as they grow, they just become more and more extreme versions of themselves to where they're almost comedic. Right. How different they are. This was like instant Flandersization of both the characters. Rick went to Ultra Dick Rick, and Morty went to Ultra Pathetic.
Ultra Pathetic. But in the real world, there was Healthy Rick and Healthy Morty, and Healthy Rick, he actually sounded a lot like Doofus Rick.
A little bit, yeah, I'd say that.
I think it was just because he was just kind of cheery.
Doofus Rick was obviously cheery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he seemed to be having a good life despite eating poop. And
Morty, no, because he's eating poop, possibly.
Right. And Morty, super confident, solving everybody's problems at school.
Yeah, we get to Mr. Goldenfold's math class, and he points out that, everyone's bored, so Mr. Goldenfold must be the common denominator. Hey!
Oh, that's a good singer.
Math jokes in math class.
I like that Morty is so confident to the point of almost apathy, in a way, right? Like, Rick tries to tell him about his phone, and he's just like, oh, bad phone, chuck it. There's no concern for what's really going on. It's just, phone sucks. I got rid of mine.
Yep. No, there's bigger things. There's bigger things to worry about in life, man. Instead of sitting here and dwelling on all the shit that you have going on. And that's what basically this Morty, his toxins were his self-loathing and his lack of confidence. Mm-hmm. They got pulled out of him. So he was just kind of talking and doing whatever the hell he was doing. So he asks, and you can see that when he asks Jessica out on a date, where he doesn't let her get a word in. He's just talk. He can't shut his mouth, and because he's just feeling it. He's feeling the vibe. It's like he's been doing a bunch of cocaine.
Right. It's weird that Toxic Rick's, even though he's kind of more at peace with himself and more self-aware of his faults as such, it's weird that he, like, I don't know, it still struck me kind of odd. I guess he wanted to do the right thing, but like that he actually wanted to remerge with the Toxic Rick.
I could see where he was coming from, that he felt bad. I guess he had empathy for once, or at least empathy that he showed for something outside of Morty or anyone else. He showed empathy to his toxic self, even though he was treating him like shit and telling him "fuck you" every time he could,
right,
and everything. But that just means that Rick is actually empathetic. If that's the part that got left back. So he does care despite his outside demeanor every once in a while, which I think also will drive the story a little bit.
Morty finally gets a date with Jessica.
Yeah.
Totally, and as you mentioned before, just cannot shut the fuck up.
Yeah, if anything, he makes it more awkward than what it should normally be.
Mm-hmm. Like he's trying too hard, but he's not really trying too hard. That's just who Cleanse Morty is. He needs the yin to his yang, so to speak.
Yeah, it's very odd to see Morty that way, especially since he is nearly like peeing his pants every time he sees Jessica normally.
Mm-hmm. He was actually annoying me. Remember a couple weeks ago you said that Rick was actually annoying you with how much of a dick he was? Like, I've watched this episode like several times now, and every time he's just chatting at the table, even I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
Which I guess was actually foreshadowed, because when Toxic Rick and Toxic Morty kind of figured out who they were, Toxic Rick ask his equivalent of Morty, what he thinks, and Toxic Morty says, I think I have an annoying voice, and Rick's like, yeah, and that's your best.
And that's your best quality, yeah.
And that's your best quality. So perhaps it was foreshadowing Morty's just uber optimistic, obnoxious voice.
I guess it was positive that at the Jessica date that he actually, realized that she was trying to get out of it, and was kind of cool about it. So that's neat, I guess, to Jessica at least, to say, yeah, go ahead if you're not feeling it, because I'm being a weirdo, get out of here.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's cool.
He's got other stuff to do, including go meet up with Stacy there.
Yeah, there's plenty of Morty to go around, man. He's not going to be let down just because the love of his life apparently can't stand to be around him even for dinner. Post that bullshit move where there's an emergency all of a sudden and she has to leave.
It was very noble of her to at least acknowledge that she was trying to pull that old trick, that old hat. Right. Of saying she had something better to do or had to meet up with friends or there was an emergency or something.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then Morty's on the prowl, spots Stacy, and he's just slightly less obnoxious talking to Stacy.
A little bit, but I think she's lonely enough to where she's a little bit more receptive of it. And Morty clinched the deal with saying, or when she asked if he's just a child, he says, yeah, only in the ways that matter.
Right.
All right.
I'm not even really sure what that means, but that's so awesome.
I assume it means he is very sexually unexperienced and has a small penis.
Yeah, that's.
But I don't know that.
It's just such a smooth line that like a real Casanova would use.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid using it on presumably an early 20s dominatrix he finds at the bar. So good for him.
Yeah, good for Morty to pick that out.
Yeah, you gotta start somewhere. Morty and Stacy, they kind of go do their things, and apparently Morty has just learned about Benoit technology.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
No, I don't. I didn't look it up.
Benoit balls are like steel balls that a woman will put in her vagina.
Oh.
Like hold them in to like strengthen the muscles in her vag.
Oh, it's like that whole goop egg thing, like where you have to put the jade egg in there and hold on to it.
Yes,
oh, okay.
Exactly. So that was Benoit technology. So Morty's learning a lot of lessons that he could take back to high school.
Absolutely. I don't know if I would call that technology though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's people go to the ER all the time for shoving stuff in their orifices. Mm-hmm. Is that really technology to just shove something somewhere? Well,
perhaps maybe they were like battery powered or something. Maybe they.
Oh, okay.
Maybe they vibrated or something.
You sold me. You sold me.
Yeah. I love that. Clean Rick and Clean Morty are arguing what to do with Toxic Rick and Toxic Morty. Stacy wants to leave, and he's like, "Hey, you're your own woman, Stacy." And she's just like, "Then I would like to stay." Like it's just very even keel.
This is getting interesting. Well, she already got heated up a little bit, because or she was about to get heated up as Rick and Morty fought that same intergenerational sandwich type situation that Goldenfold Summer had in his head.
Yes.
She was thinking she could be the meat in that sandwich. I'm thinking, yeah.
Toxic Rick is pretty much wants to swap spots with Toxic Rick and Toxic Morty. I don't even think he really wanted to take over. I think he just wanted to lock them in the tank because they had to be in the tank.
Yeah, it was more vindictive than anything, so it seemed.
Right.
I mean, he wanted to be out, obviously, because he thought it sucked. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that there was much beyond that, because, as we found out later, Toxic Rick doesn't really think things through. He doesn't have endgames. He's just thinking about the next step.
And really, would that have been that bad? I mean, if you're like the toxic version and you're like in a toxic world already, well, I guess maybe claustrophobic. I guess it wouldn't be an entire. It'd be more of a prison cell, I guess.
Yeah, like in what's Dark Knight Rises.
Mm-hmm. Bane?
Basically, that's all it was. Yeah.
I got you.
Yes.
I for like 2 years after that movie came out, I went around just punching handicapped people in the middle of the back, just trying to cure them.
Well, that's what you do. It was an educational film, Brian.
Mm-hmm. It was. God, that movie fucked up the story of Bane so bad. I'm so shitty about that. Shitty about it.
It wasn't supposed to. It's not about Bane, and it's not about the real story of Bane. It was taking him as a caricature of himself and then fitting it into a real world situation. Because, I mean, how realistic is the real Bane story that he actually has like a toxin that he can inject into himself and become like a monster? You gotta real world that a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, and you couldn't understand what he said. I mean, that was actually the most hilarious part to me. That was the only Batman movie I saw in the theater twice. And the second time, the first time I saw it, I was like, man, this is awesome. And the second time I saw it, which was a week later, with some other friends of ours, I was bored, like halfway through it. Like, seriously, this is still happening. And I still can't understand anything Tom Hardy said.
Yeah.
Except when he came from the darkness. Yes.
It's like a bad impersonation of whoever did Sean Connery on Saturday Night Live's old Celebrity Jeopardy skits with Will Ferrell.
Yeah, if you put your hand over your mouth and did a terrible Sean Connery impression, that's what you get as Bane.
That's how you end up with Bane. Yep, absolutely.
To all you impersonators out there. There you go. Because it sounds like this in the darkness.
All right, back to Rick and Morty.
All right.
So basically, long story short, Toxic Rick wants to kick the shit out of Clean Rick, and he, for all intents and purposes, he does. He just beats the shit out of him.
Yeah,
Rick
because
is one solid punching, but other than that, it's a pretty one-sided mollywhopping.
Absolutely, because regular Rick, Clean Rick, I guess to say, is kind of just a huge pussy and just wants to negotiate things, which is not the Rick way to sit there and negotiate. So all of Rick thinks that his own anger, I'm guessing, is all part of his toxic stuff, because that's what all of his anger and everything got pulled out of him and put into Toxic Rick.
Right.
Also worth mentioning, Stacy is the one who gets put into Toxic World instead of regular Rick and Morty.
Yeah. She kind of finds that hot, and then it's kind of like she gets stuck. Yeah, sea cucumber indeed. Yeah, she gets stuck. So I like that they destroyed the house yet again,
and like bad this time. Not even just a regular destruction. Like
not even like just a garage.
Yeah, I was gonna say Summer pretty much destroyed half the house last time growing up, and everything was back to normal because we saw a regular garage there. So they've probably got a pretty good homeowners policy on that house, is what I'm gonna guess.
Yeah. I love that Toxic Morty crashed the UFO through the house. It was just like a crazy no holds barred fight where everything just got absolutely destroyed, and Summer and Beth made it unscathed though, so that's nice.
Well, unscathed without having to see two versions of their father and or grandpa completely nude just standing in front of them.
Yeah, lots of wieners.
Yeah, with both a regular and toxic penis just waving in front of them.
Lots of wieners in this week's episode. Yeah. So Toxic Rick and Toxic Morty are like, all right, fuck it, fine. You don't want to go in the toxic jail? We'll just make the whole world toxic, and that made me nervous because I thought they were going to ruin another dimension or another dimension.
Oh, like Cronenberg it, do something like that. And then they have to jump out.
Where they were kind of going, and then they were just going to pick back up with the joke, like, because remember last time that happened, Rick makes a comment, we can only do this like 11 more times.
Yes.
I was waiting for the joke for them to be like, oh, we can only do this like 4 more times, meaning that 6 times have happened since the last time.
In between there. I also want to point out, call back to season 1. Summer is sitting there watching The Life and Times of Mrs. Pancakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she was stunned when Mrs. Pancakes proclaimed that the man she was with does, in fact, know her.
I'd assume that, I mean, in that show, within the show, that's probably...
That was like the...
You know, like an epitomous story arc that happened for her to be able to admit that.
Yeah, totally. So. And I laughed way harder at that than than I probably should have. Like, it was just so dumb. Like, oh.
Yeah, I like to think it was followed by jazz music and then a slow television OK sex scene.
Mm-hmm. Like a silhouette of them in front of a fire, and then it just pans over to a candle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, exactly that is what I was thinking in my head.
And then the candlelight fades. And then suddenly it's a like a burnt out candle. Like the wax is somehow burned unevenly, even though no candle has ever burnt like that in the history of the world. Unless it's
been leaning or something, and then you hurry up and put it back.
Right? Yeah. Right. I've never understood movie candles, how they burn like a 45-degree angle into the wax. I've never once seen a candle burn like that ever in my life. But
I have like one of those candelabra things that you hold, like for an individual candle, like it was the 1700s, and you're walking around your house with a long nightcap on. That would be the only way I could think that would happen, is if you're walking around like that. Because, any candle you normally have just burns because it's a fucking candle.
Right.
It just burns down.
If I ever happen upon a really angularly melt candle, I'm just going to assume some TV sex happened there.
I think that's fair. Fair.
I mean, what else can you do at that point, right? Like, that's the only thing that could possibly signify. So, Rick pretty much convinces toxic Rick to merge back with him, because Clean Rick is totally okay with killing toxic Morty. Because
he lost all of his love for Morty, because it turns out Rick's thinks that is toxic, is the fact that he actually cares about Morty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that also left with him. And what you also see in there too, which I noticed throughout all of the toxic Rick and Morty scenes, is Rick is constantly trying to impress Morty, or make sure that Morty notices the impressive things he's doing. Mm-hmm. Because that's also something else that Rick has, is, and he'll never admit it and he doesn't show it, but he's really on a constant adventure, or a constant venture to say, to actually impress Morty with the fact that he's so smart and he's so godlike in the universe. It's not about the fact he can do it; it's about he needs to impress his grandson, which I think is a little sweet.
Indeed, it's tier, and deep, pretty deep. That's a good analysis, Jeff. Bravo, my friend. That's like 2 points for you. Great job.
All right.
When it comes time for Toxic Morty to merge with Clean Morty, Clean Morty's kind of shows that he's kind of selfish and takes off via jetpack. So that would mean that Clean Morty thinks being selfish is not toxic.
Or he thinks being generous or thinking about others is toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Having empathy is toxic. Because he turned basically regular Morty, or not regular Morty, but Morty after cleanse, is definition sociopath. Mm-hmm. He has no feelings for other people. He's just doing what he wants to do, so he can meet his own ends. You know, he says stuff to people just so he can move on and reach whatever goals he's going to do. But he honestly does not give really a shit about anyone or anything else. He's just doing his own thing, man.
And as it turns out, that's very advantageous if you're trying to become a Wall Street salesman.
Yes.
Right? Then what was he sell? Pharmaceuticals or some shit?
I don't even remember what it was. He's a stockbroker.
Right.
Because it turns into like a combination of Wolf of Wall Street and American Psycho for the last like 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the show.
Mm-hmm. Has a hot redhead, Jacqueline. Morty was doing well for himself this episode.
Man, yeah, he was kicking ass.
Yeah.
Animation note, since you like to point these out every once in a while, she was a redhead, so obviously he's still got those Jessica feelings sitting in the background. But not only did they put freckles on her face, but they put freckles on her chest too.
I did notice that.
I just thought that was a very odd animation or coloring choice. I not odd, but
right. It's just kind of like a funny,
ultra realistic
detail,
for a show like that. Yeah.
Jacqueline. Her name was Jacqueline.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Morty, and starts with a J, just like Jessica. Morty actually gets a call from Jessica and asks him to come back. And Clean Morty's right onto that, right? Like, he's like, why? She's like, can I talk to you for a minute? He's like, why? Is that how long it'll take Rick to trace my call?
Mm-hmm.
But then he lets it happen because he doesn't hang up. And when that's addressed by Jacqueline, he's just like, oh, isn't that weird? So is Clean Morty, like, is he trying to find an excuse for himself to get merged back with Toxic Morty? I
think, and this is my own analysis, is that, he's gone on here, because it has to have been months for him to become a stockbroker like that, right? And have that apartment and enough money to afford that apartment. It's had to have been quite a while, at least a couple days for that to happen. That over that time, maybe he did some internal self-reflection that he is a complete sociopath and he actually needs those hang-ups to be a regular person. Because otherwise, he probably would have murdered the redhead.
Your leap in logic is quite a leap, but it's sound. It's sound.
Thank you.
Yep. Jessica comes through a portal with Rick. Man, that was weird, right?
Well, I
guess I get it that everybody just kind of accepts that this happens, right? Everybody just kind of accepts like whatever sci-fi ridiculousness is going on. I just found that kind of odd that Jessica would come through the portal with Rick.
Well, she's also she's seen the portal before. In the pilot episode even, they portal into the lunchroom and, right hell onto the table that Jessica's eating at. And then Rick shows up randomly all the time, and they portal through some lockers. So I guess it's just kind of one of those things that's, well, he comes back, right? So fuck it. Let's try this out.
You wouldn't question it because you're familiar with it, I guess. So
yeah.
And apparently Rick has been calling her crying because he wants Morty. So I guess that means that the Rick that we follow really does love Morty.
Whether he likes to admit it or not.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. It's nice. It's quite nice. He injects Morty with Toxic Morty, and I love the writhing on the floor animation because that was a great... I felt like that was almost a callback to the pilot episode where it was just like the long, drawn-out, excruciating, like weird angles of the bones.
Yeah, when he gets his bones put back together, yeah.
Yeah, when his legs got healed by like a over-the-counter drug.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. It was nice to see. But Morty's back together, and being a nice guy, he actually breaks up with Jacqueline, who he offers the new apartment. And one thing that it was like she could have like the money and the apartment and everything, and he tried, but she couldn't have Rick's drones.
Well, no, because they make a super sweet Voltron type thing. Even though there were 6 of them, there were 6 instead of 5. But that robot, when they went together, that was pretty awesome.
That was pretty cool.
You got to admit, yeah.
And I feel like there was two very Simpson jokes in this episode, like very classic Simpsons jokes, like when the robots turned into Voltron, and Rick again reiterated that he couldn't have the drones. He's like, well, she can't have the drones because it turns into a sweet Voltron. And then changes into robot Voltron. He's like, seriously, you can't have the drones.
Yeah.
And then it cuts out. Another very Simpsons joke was earlier in the episode when everything went to the toxic world. The woman from Sbarro went and ate in a dumpster, and the people from the healthy eating place went and ate in Sbarro.
Yes. Yeah, I was gonna loop around to those after they turned out, or after we got done talking, since we skipped over them. But yeah, dumpster feeding, going from Sbarro to dumpster feeding, because that's really what you want to do. Hilarious.
Yeah. But it was very Simpsons-esque because in the Simpsons movie there was a similar joke set up the same way. Like when people figured out they were trapped in the dome, the people from the church went to the bar, like that was right next door. It was very similar. Like the timing and beats of it and everything was very similar to that joke in the Simpsons movie. But the creators, were heavily influenced by classic Simpsons episodes. So, but there was just something about those two things that just, and you know me, I love the Simpsons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I'm one of the few that still watch it to this day. So, so it just seemed like a very, very classic Simpsons-y type joke, and it made me chuckle just a bit.
Good.
A bit.
I'm glad you found enjoyment.
Yep, absolutely.
I got enjoyment. I was going to say, I got enjoyment from the 6-year-old of a person went from eating Sbarro pizza to eating garbage. But whatever.
Is it really that much of a change? Sbarro does fucking suck.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for airports, that place would not survive.
The one in our mall that we have here closed. And I was kind of sad. Because every once in a while, I like to either slice of pizza or calzone, as much as I hated myself for eating it afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I don't know of anyone who ever ate like the pasta and stuff that they had there, and like the meatballs and things.
Yeah, it's like weird, right?
Yeah, I don't know one person ever in the history of ever that actually ate that stuff. But whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so we're back to school, and everything appears to be normal. Jessica is they're kind of picking up the conversation from early in the episode, talking about Jessica breaking up with Brad, and the friend is talking about golden showers. And how it's yummy. Yeah.
Yum.
And Rick shows up again to drag Morty into another adventure, and kind of a sweet moment. Jessica, takes a moment to acknowledge Morty, so maybe there's hope for their future relationship.
And I hope the best for Morty. I really do. Because, Jessica's a hot animated lady in that world.
Indeed. So. And you know what? It's not like Jessica ever really ignored, because I don't think she was ever really mean to Morty. They just kind of never connected.
Yeah, they're in different social groups. She's got her one that she hangs out with, and Morty doesn't have one.
She's super popular, and Morty has no friends and will die alone.
Right.
Well, I guess he has a 70-year-old grandpa.
Well, it's better than nothing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, who apparently is 70 years old. I guess I never really put a number on it, but didn't we find out this episode he was 70 years old?
70 or 65 or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 70. So everything's back to normal. Hooray, credits roll, and there's like a tour group looking at the moon tower. They accidentally open up the tank, and Stacy is finally released with Sea Cucumber. And end of episode, and I'm assuming everything is going to go back to normal on Sunday.
I also would assume the same thing. One thing in between, actually, what we're talking about right now, and when they're leaving the spa, we get introduced to the Terry Folds song, the Terry Fold dance.
Yes,
yeah,
it's obvious that Justin Roiland, they just had like a Casio keyboard beat, and Justin Roiland, they just needed a song for background, and that's just kind of what he came up with.
Right. You can hear it. Yeah, you son of a bitch. Yeah.
But at least they took the time to then hire background singers to harmonize with him and make it like a fully produced song.
I enjoy it, and they're trying to get it on the radio. So I hope whoever's listening to this, that they actually get to hear it in their car on the radio played, because they even made an FCC OK version.
That is amazing. God, now I hope. Yeah, that's amazing.
Well,
that's
you live in the greater Chicago area up there, Brian. So if you have free time, I would suggest incessantly calling radio stations, pop radio stations, to see if they can play the Terry Fold dance.
I am on it. So with that, great episode. I really enjoyed it. Like you said, it seemed very much like classic Rick and Morty. It wasn't too like story arc heavy. It was just kind of Rick and Morty go on an adventure, and just when you think they're going to fuck everything up, it goes back to normal. So it'll be interesting to see what they have going on next week.
Absolutely. And this episode here, thanks to the toxic Rick and Morty, and them fighting and coming through the window when Summer's watching Mrs. Pancakes there, that I'm pretty sure is it from the trailer, or of any of the scenes that were in the season 3 trailer. Right,
because we've talked about it. Right, there's really nothing. There's really nothing left to it. Right, unless they do like the Amiibo Morty thing.
Right. And even that's in every episode because it's in the beginning. So we're next week we're going into new territory, brand new territory with everything.
Totally. Rick and Morty apparently are heading to the lost city of Atlantis, so it should be interesting viewing. The synopsis for it is: Atlantis, we are coming. A nice little self-contained episode about Atlantis is waiting for the audience. Well, so awesome.
Okay. All right then.
I love that their descriptions are about as basic as it can be.
Yeah, I do like that this episode, though, is kind of like a reset from all of the super heavy, and emotionally heavy things that have happened the past 5 episodes. It had its points, actually. It's I hate to admit it, it struck some emotional chords with me about what you believe is toxic and not, and your relationships or your own personal self. And Rick and Morty has become something that I actually am sitting and thinking about. Like it's teaching me life lessons, which is dumb for a cartoon to admit.
Well, that's what makes it a good show, right?
Yeah. Well, exactly. But tonally, it's a nice reset to give us the last 3 episodes or 4 episodes, because I think they go to 11 this season.
Yeah. And it came right at the right time, right? With like a nice pause. Nice pause because of the, here in the United States we had Labor Day, which is our celebration of the time that President Grover Cleveland sent the army to shoot down a bunch of people at the Pullman Boxcar Company for not delivering the mail. And and really, I think that's what life is all about.
Right. Getting shot outside of a train in the 20s.
Exactly. So, with that, we look forward to talking to you next week with the Ricklaxation mix-up. Hopefully it won't take us a week and a half to record an episode.
We're sorry.
Please,
we're sorry.
Yeah, it happens. You only YOLO once, Jeff. You only YOLO once. But we'll talk to you next week after the Ricklaxation mix-up, episode 7. So we are on the back half of episode 3. Make sure to check us out on the Nothing Important podcast and this week's chat with Wheeler Walker Jr. If you haven't heard of him, super cool dude. Look him up. Funny as shit. Also check out our Better Call Saul podcast. It's Saul Goodman. You can find that on iTunes and itssaulgoodman.com. And overall, it's been absolutely fun, and we're nice and rested up from our sabbatical for the past week and a half, and I guess I'm ready for Sunday night. Jeff, you ready?
I'm totally ready.
All right, awesome. Well, we will see you then. Please make sure to hit us up on Twitter at Plumbus Among Us, and maybe even use the hashtag Spacemen. Hashtag Moonmen, and you can use the hashtag Moonmen.
Would you shut up about the Moon Man?
Spaceman. That's awesome.
Nice, very very nice screw up there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna keep it in.
All right. Well, yeah.